I'm here with Mike of Darkest Hour to talk about the upcoming new record, Perpetual Terminal, out February 23rd on Monarch Heavy. Thank you very much for taking the time to chat with me about the record. It's an absolute pleasure to have you on the channel.
Well, thanks for having me on. I'm stoked to talk about heavy metal.
I'm stoked to talk about Darkest Hour, man. The last time I saw you guys in Toronto was a long time ago. We'll get to that. You guys were playing with Unearth
Oh
at
yeah.
the Hard Luck Bar. I don't know how that place survived that show. I honestly thought the building was going to get condemned afterwards, but we'll talk more about that. Let's get into this record. This to me is, let me just start off by saying, one of the best albums you guys have ever released. It's an outstanding record. So what was the starting point that led to such an incredible outcome?
Uh, I well, I think the starting point really was the tour we did last year, or yeah, last year. That was the Deliver Us, uh, like retrospective tour. We played everything in its entirety. I mean, of course, we've been working on this record for 4 years, 4 or 5 years. We didn't start on it right after the last one, but then we started for a little bit. Then the pandemic hit. Then we weren't sure, like, what do we do with our lives, kind of thing. And it wasn't really till we did that tour realized, oh, like, love when we make albums. Because I have to be honest, up to the last album, but like creatively, we were like, it. We made the best Darkest Hour record ever. It's heavy as fuck. We didn't, pull any punches. We had Kurt Ballou produce it. It was just hardcore. It was crowd funded. You know what I mean? Self release kind of thing. And so we just felt like, why even make records? Maybe we'll make singles. Who knows what we'll do? You know what I mean? Then we went touring and blah blah blah, and then the pandemic hit, and then we were sort of like lost for a while. Like, and it wasn't until we realized again, like, kind of being out there playing an entire record, it's from start to finish, seeing how people reacted. We were like, our gut has always been right. Like, we're just an album band, so let's go take all this stuff we have and make some sense of it. And it was kind of like, once we realized people were paying attention, and also we had started a Patreon, which is a internet kind of website that we had been doing like some special items and kind of fan club stuff right before the pandemic. And then this became the only way we survived. So we started making a little bit more than we were spending doing it. We were like, well, we should use this to fund the next record. All this happened at the same time. And we decided, which we did, went back on. We were like, we're going to self release this thing, we're going to self produce it. We're gonna put it all out through this fucking stupid Patreon. This is cool. This is like direct to people. We don't need anything else. And then, as we realized from doing the Patreon, how much work it was and how hard it was to like give the music, the proper due that it needed, then we had to kind of team up with MNRK and kind of go down that road again. That's a whole other story. I mean, really, the beginning, I think, was when we got back to full time touring. We had been doing a little touring here and there during the pandemic, but it wasn't until we were able to like get in the van again, go to Europe again, all once, and it was like, okay, yeah, we really want to do this. We need to do this.
When you guys were going through that thought process, did you at any point in time think that, this is going to be our 10th record? There is perhaps a little bit of expectations from the fans of what the band needs to do. Does that ever come to mind when you guys are working on a record, or you separate what you guys think the expectations are, and it's more about what your own expectations are?
I mean, I don't know what other bands do really, but I know like what we do, what I do is, I mean, I'm a fan, I mean, I love heavy metal so much that I listened to it this morning. I'm going to keep listening to it later. I love all these bands. As soon as I meet people in bands that I love, I freak out on them and get way too close to them and get all crazy on them. So I get it. Like, of course, I'm thinking about what people think. You know what I mean? But you also can't let it drive you creatively, because sometimes you need to lead. You know what I mean, as the artist. So it's kind of a balance. And so going into this record, I mean, yeah, we wanted to make a record that people would like. You know what I mean? Like, we weren't just like, this is gonna be our own art project and we're gonna shove it down your throats. No, we wanted to make an album that was true to the band that had has been around for almost 30 years. This is our 10th album. It needs to be true to the discography and the sound of the band. and also loyal to the people who have been behind it. At the same time, I think that there's some big ass risks for us on a 10th album, you know, having done Godless Prophets that are super cool as people get the album. So I think that we've proven that we care, you know, about making a record that fits in with the lineage, but also we are not gonna just stay in a box totally. You know what I mean?
The first thing I noticed when I was listening to this record was because I'm an album guy. For me, it's about listening to the record from the first song to the last song, and
I think
what,
yeah, most metal people are, you know, but yeah, I get it. It's like a
yeah,
theme.
yeah, it's like, yeah, I need to be entertained. You know, to quote Russell Crowe, I need to be
Yeah,
entertained.
exactly.
I need to find like there's a journey, there's a sense of purpose. Like I like to be completely consumed by the record itself. And I thought this album had an interesting dynamic, at least from my standpoint. You may feel differently, but the second half of the album felt a lot more melancholic than the first half of the album. Not to say that the second half of the album doesn't have in your face kind of songs, but there's a little bit more melancholy that comes across, at least a little bit more noticeable. Do you see the, now taking a step back, do you see the record a little bit like that, or to you the album's a lot more balanced than what it appeared to be to me?
I mean, I guess I'm trying to think of it that way. I mean, because there's like when you're doing it, you're obviously trying to do it like in waves, right? So we had the first song. We knew it's the first song. You know, it was, you know, kind of the one thing that just felt like, okay, this is going to be the beginning. And then, to be honest, like a few of the other songs in there, we popped around. You know what I mean? And it wasn't until like the happiest of all accidents, the instrumental. It's like a 2.5 minute long just guitar solo, but it's awesome. You know what I mean? And it fits in the album kind of where it does, and I think sets off the second half of the album in a different way. And also, we've been playing it live, you know, for the past year and a half, which is hilarious. Like we'll just bust it out and it goes over amazing and people are just like, what was that? You know, and it's like, yeah, that can be a Darkest Hour song. It can be that, it can be anything, right? And I think once the album kind of set with that, and then you also have sort of the I don't know if it's the biggest risk, but it's something we never tried, the song Mausoleum, which is like
My
super
favorite.
melodic, you know. Okay, that's interesting. That's your favorite. I love that just because it just validates all the pain and misery that went into maybe, you know, when we were making it like maybe, like, you know, in the same risk that the guitar solo instrumentally song that people will ever hear, that'll hear eventually, that I know a lot of people will gravitate to because it's cool. In the same way that was sort of like a, yo, what if it was this, you know? That song Mausoleum, which people will hear and obviously talk about eventually, it also came from the initial idea of like, yo, what if this song could be this, you know? And I think creatively, it's just nice when people are like that stuff that you did like that, you know what I mean? Because the other shit, obviously, we tried, but that shit, it was like, do we do this? Yeah, it's good.
It,
Okay, let's do it.
And you know
You
what?
know?
I think Mausoleum perhaps is the song on that second half of the record that gives the overall second, because you have that instrumental, it's almost like an interlude. It breaks the record into two. And then on the second half, you have that Mausoleum track that, in my opinion, has such a strong impact on that second half that kind of distorts the vision of what the second half of the album is, because that melancholy of that song kind of lingers, and and it has such a strong impact that even though you have heavy songs that come after, that song just stays with you, and maybe that's what's giving me that perception of the second half being more melancholic.
Well, I mean, as a theme, we kind of wanted it to just sort of, you know, and the last song, which is kind of crazy because the last song to me was like the craziest one, how it came together. It's just super out there, and it probably will be the least likely to be played live
It's
because
the
it would
longest
take them,
too.
yeah, and blah blah blah. But it's just like every part has a little place in, I think, the overall complexion of the album. You know what I mean? And yeah, I don't know. I'm just glad that you've connected enough to even pay attention enough to any of that, and that anything sticks. You know what I mean? Because all, like I said, other than the last song, which I think it just will take up a lot of oxygen in the room to play live. We were planning to try to play all this live, you know what I mean? Especially Mausoleum, especially the instrumental, especially the song. I guess it's like I got to remember, like into, you know, one with the void. I got to remember because they changed names a million times, right? Some of the ones that are harder, that are different, that aren't just thrash metal, those are going to really bring the live set to life in a new way. Because as we've been re-entering the live show and doing, you know, playing with different bands and doing tours, we realize that, you know, leaning on the different styles that we've done in the past, now that people's overall perception of heavy metal has changed, whereas like most heavy bands do have singing, most sing, you know, I just saw Enslaved, a video where the dude had an acoustic guitar and he was singing over top of black metal, you know what I mean? Like anything can happen now. So I think once you embrace all that and throw it in the album with everybody and put it in a live set, it like, you're gonna be entertained, like you said. Like, come to the show, you know what I mean? We can't wait, kind of thing.
So the live set plays a big role for you guys when it comes to putting a record like this together. Is that always on
Uh,
the back of your mind?
I mean, you know, it probably shouldn't be as much because, you know, we're all going to be dead later and then it's just going to be an album and nobody's going to see it live. And how many
Positive
live
thinking,
shows?
positive thinking.
Well, how many? I mean, hey, it depends on how you look at it. You know, you have to really think about the now. For us, that's what I mean. Like for the now, we definitely think about the live stuff because we're also like a live band, even though this album is very studioed. You know, we love to play and we love to tour. We love to travel and see new places and the whole culture of being on tour. So we definitely think about that when we're making an album because we think about what do we want to do, you know, when we go out there. And I think the back catalog plays into that thinking a little bit because if you were thinking like solely, I'm just making this record for the internet, you know what I mean? And in the back catalog, it doesn't matter. Maybe you would write different, but for us, we're always thinking like we have so many of this type of songs, so many of this type of songs. You're always trying to stretch no matter what, you know what I mean? And I don't know. I just think it's a way of a band that writes collaboratively and tours just is because like traveling and playing shows is so much a part of our lives. I can't imagine how it wouldn't affect like the writing and the concepts in the album, you know.
It's funny that you mentioned the word studio when you're referring to this record, because I don't know if you're referring to what I'm going to be referring, but I honestly felt like this album wasn't overly produced. It had some raw sound to it. It kind of and specifically when it comes to the guitars, because for me listening to this album, I felt like the guitars were super textured and they had a lot of versatility. And bear with me here, I felt like the heavier sound on the guitars had a little bit more raw, was a little bit more rough, had a little bit more grit, which gave me a little bit more of a live feel to how the heavy guitars come across in a live sense. Then the melodic side of the guitars felt more produced, it felt cleaner, crisper. And then you had the darker side that came with the acoustic guitars. I thought this what do you call this trifecta of evil here, guitar wise, was really important for me as a listener because I don't think you overused any of it. You just mixed it at the right amounts in the right places in order to every time you hear one of the other, it always feels fresh. Do you see the guitar sound that dynamic, or was it a little bit more organic from your standpoint?
First of all, I'm impressed you paid that much attention. I'm fucking stoked. Second of all, I kind of know what you're hearing because like we used on the album, we used let me think about this. Uh two main guitars for the rhythms and one main guitar for well, two main guitar for the lead guitars. But these guitars sound that way. Like the ESPs that we use with the floating bridge for the heavy songs, like you're saying, it sounds raw and you can like hear how it sounds like rougher and shit, right? But then the Keisel guitar that Nico plays, which just fucking so clear, dude. And the way he holds a pick is so goddamn clear. Like, man, is that MIDI? What the fuck? Dude, do that again. You're like, fuck, man. Yo,
Yep.
can you play a little bit worse? Shit sounds too like, you know what I mean? And so when you combine it all and everybody's being collaborative, you know what I mean? And it's not just like one person doing something or something being edited to be one way, then like something magic happens where I think that those like layers and that nuance can be built. And it's definitely absolutely something that was totally planned. You know, we had some. I'm happy to hear you say it wasn't overproduced, because the person who helped record it, and I mean, it says self-produced, but it was not self-recorded. His name's Taylor Larson. He did our last full-length record, or not, no, he did our last record with Sumerian Records 2 records ago, the self-titled. Took a bunch of chances, had a bunch of input. Everybody had a bunch of input. Sumerian had a bunch, so shit was wild. He never really felt like, man, we got a chance to make the record that we wanted to make, that was just fucking Darkest Hour record, because there's so much happening at that time. So when we approached him this time, they'd be like, dude, we want to record, like, we want to record an album and be in charge. And the first step is, you've made, in our opinion, the best sounding Darkest Hour record. Let's do it one more time. Shut the door and not let anybody else in. And we're going to fucking do this. You know what I mean? And then as soon as we started, he's like, all right, shit can't be fucking all gridded up and whatever and perfect and everything super tight. We need to have some actual flavor in here. So I want to use this guitar for this and this guitar for that. And you need to play this. And then we would like go back and forth for the rhythms of shit. And he would like, you know, be like, no, I like the way Mike's wrist sounds for this. I like the way his wrist sounds for this. I mean, this is kind of like old school thinking in an era where you have a fucking computer and you can just, you know what I mean? I mean, we really approached it like that. And I think that, you know, I'm happy that when you were listening that closely, I think you're hearing the translation of all that hard work, you know what I mean? And that's what we were attempting to do, at least.
I mean, even the acoustic guitars, you could hear the fingers running through the strings, like the frets, everything. I thought that was so cool, because a lot of bands these days, when they go with acoustic, they clean it up so much, they kind of takes a little bit of the texture of what it means to play.
Man, this is rad, because you're listening. I think you're talking a lot about Mausoleum, because that is a song that has a lot of acoustics on this album.
Yeah,
and
well, even Perpetual Terminal has acoustic as well, and you can still hear
it.
Yeah,
that's Nico. Yeah, well, John actually played some acoustic this time, which is amazing, right? Because he's not one of the main guitar players in the band, I'll say. And when it's guitar record time, it's pretty brutal in there, you know what I mean? And the last thing you want to do is be another person who comes in there who wants to also try to record guitar, you know what I mean? like in that situation, because we're a lot of opinions going at each other like super hard. So at some point we were like, you know what, man? We need this doesn't, just go in and play the way you played it when you played us the idea. Because that idea started with John saying, hey, I have this idea on acoustic guitar, and singing some shit at us. And we're like, well, so we go back to how we did it. Like, don't worry if me and like Nico and don't worry if we all can play it like cleaner. Just play it like with some feeling, you know what I mean? And then there was that moment where we're like, should we like clean this up? Like, is this gonna, but no, we chose not to. And then I'm happy that you hear why, you know what I mean? Because the struggle is real to get it to sound huge and modern, but also real and live, you know?
And this is the last time I'm going to say anything about that song. That song has my favorite solo on the record. But you mentioned
great.
Nico.
See, I was like, right, put a fucking solo in it. I win too.
To close off, it's like a curtain coming down, as a mic drop. Like, you know, like the air has left the room. Let's just fucking get out of here. They're like, okay, it's over. This is over. You know, it's like the Vince Carter dunk when you won the slam dunk contest in the NBA. It's over. It was over. Like, it's just done. And you mentioned Nico a few times. What do you feel he's brought to the band, not just as a guitar player, but obviously as a band member?
Well, as a guitar player, he's brought these things called bends. They get no. First of all, he came to us through the avenues of touring. Like we met him on tour, and when we needed someone new, I had a whole draft of people, but I was like, man, like, let me hit him up, you know, because he was so fucking good in Fallujah. I mean, right?
Yeah.
But I found out later he was in Suicidal Tendencies for a while. And I was like, what? And I saw like he would know the ability, like that we're kind of like a live band. We like to move around. I got that he could maybe get both of those things. And after he started like writing and working with the band, or I mean, basically touring with the band and kind of playing the shows, I started being like, hey man, I got all this stuff I'm working on. I'm like, why don't you just like play a solo on this real quick? Let's see what it sounds like, right? And dude, as soon as that happened once, it was so fucking awesome and modern sounding, and just like the injection that demo needed. I had to go to the guys and go like, yo, hold on, we got a problem. Because you thought the shit was good before, but now check this out. And then thing leads to another, and eventually you're like, all right, been in all these bands, Suicidal, Fallujah, The Faceless, been rocking. But yo, like, write a song with us. You know what I mean? You don't just like play the songs that you've learned. Like, get in there. Like, you got a riff, I got this riff. Let's, you know. And then we got in there, and then that's when I think that the final kind of circle, I think, was just completed, and then he was in. You know, and then that kind of sort of just permeated everything. And then I was allowed to do what I do kind of best in the band, which is sort of like maybe even produce the ideas and go like, yo, what about this? And then he was fertile ground because he's from a different perspective to be like, oh yeah. And then that just changed, just unlocked the whole thing. And so I think what he's brought is the ability to play a whole bunch of stuff that none of us can play, understand music theory in a way that the rest of us don't, because he's studied music, bring a whole bunch of modern pick styles and sort of ideas that we wouldn't have necessarily had because he plays different, but also is a total fan of the band. Like, when I went to his Facebook to like, this is hilarious, I hope I'm telling the story. When I went to his Facebook to go find like shit about him, be like, is he like, what else? You know what I mean? When you're trying to
Is he going to fit in? Let's see his
audition people, like,
Yeah,
I
yeah.
knew him on tour. I just was like checking him out, like maybe even just to see like how to get a hold of him, or who knows why I was on his page. But I just scrolled down enough that I saw this thing, and I think the algorithm just shows you things that are related to you. And he had posted this video like from a phone, like way up in the rafters at a show that we had been playing, that he was just like a fan of. Like, he was at a show, we played, he filmed a video, posted like, yo, these guys rip, you know what I mean? And I was like, whoa, like, he like likes the band, you know. And we went to Tokyo and like did Deliver Us one night, Undoing Ruin one night, and it was like unreal. And he was like, this is unreal. And he's explaining to me, you know, it just dawns on me that like, being someone who respects and loves the back catalog enough to be like, I love this band, and then be able to come in with new ideas and try to understand what is the band, you know, and maybe allow the guys who've been there a minute to sort of drive the ship. That's all a talent. So I think, you know, he adds all of that stuff, and it allows the ability for the band to just grow in a whole new way and really shine. And then live, definitely come see the band, because the motherfucker nails this shit. Totally nails the shit. Totally nails it.
Yeah, he's outstanding. Outstanding. I've seen him live with Fallujah, and like, yeah, the dude is like, he's worth the price of admission. Let's put it that way. I have to ask you this. You guys have been around for nearly 3 decades. Maybe you don't want to hear about that number because it makes you feel old. But it's a massive, massive number. In a few years, you guys will reach 3 decades. What's the secret sauce for your success in terms of staying together for 3 decades?
Man, it's like we were just hanging out with Exodus on this last tour, who's an older band, if you can imagine, you know. And you know, one thing I was kind of reaffirmed is that from hanging out with them is that, like, once you get used to like the beatings that come with being in a band, you know what I mean? Like, because there's always something bad that comes right after something good, and there's always some work you got to do that is not glamorous, and some shit that you're like, I shouldn't be doing this all the time, and you just have to swallow your pride constantly. You know, once you kind of just become one with that, and become one with the kind of like conflict that is creating like a song together, or the conflict that's making a music video or whatever, and you just realize like, this is being in a band. You know what I mean? Like to be in a band where none of those conflicts exist really isn't a collaborative experience, or usually any good, you know? So to kind of suffer as a band is to kind of be a band, you know? And the more scars you take, kind of the more bigger than life you become. And one thing that was, you know, one thing that the singer of Exodus would say was, first you're a rock star, then you're a has-been, and then you're a legend. You know what I mean? Like you have to really just go through that grinder to get, I don't know, seaworn enough for people to sort of like be able to go like, fuck yeah, like I'll listen to these people enough to maybe see if they're talking about my life too in their song, you know? And so I think the secret is to just embrace that, like, you know, it's like running in the cold, you know, just embrace that it's hard and that being in a band is going to be tough. And then when the good times come, just appreciate that they're there because they're going to go away. I mean, that's kind of theme of the record a little bit, the perpetual terminal idea. And once you can do that, you can actually understand what enjoyment is, because, you know, joy ends. Otherwise, it's not a good thing.
Yeah,
Also, Chinese
nothing.
proverb.
Yeah, nothing that it's good lasts forever. Nothing that it's bad it's everlasting. I think that's kind of like my motto. Last question for you. We started by talking off about you guys playing in Toronto. With this record now coming out in February, in 2024, will you guys make the trek up to Canada, play some shows, play Toronto?
Fuck yes, twice. And yeah, you guys are gonna be fucking stoked about the second one. Not necessarily that the first one ain't gonna be bad, because we're about to come headline. We're gonna come headline there in March. You're gonna find out about it next year, but I don't give a fuck saying it right now. Canadians, we're coming to multiple shows in Canada in March of next year, and back even in the summer in some badder shit too. Can't tell you anything else.
Wow. Wow. I mean, I think you've told us enough. That's enough to mark it on the calendar for March.
Yeah,
Just circle the whole March. Just circle
yeah.
the whole March, which is my birthday. So March 10th is my birthday. So hopefully I'll see you guys around that time here. The last time I saw you guys in Toronto, like I said, with Unearth, you guys killed it. Absolutely killed it. That Hard Luck bar has never been the same again. So I'm looking forward to a headlining tour from you guys. I'm hoping to see a lot of songs from this new record because it kicks ass. I've
That
said
is
it
good.
already on my
Both of
social
that.
media. Dude, I've said this already on my social media. I know I sound like a core kid when I say this, but this is album of the year contender, and the year hasn't even started yet.
Let's
So
go.
outstanding record. I honestly went all the way into the weeds on this one, and I loved every minute of it. I'm looking forward to
Sick.
seeing you in person and hearing you guys play it.
Fuck yeah. Well, make sure you let us know you're coming. We're gonna get you on the list, and we'll get you back to meet all the dudes. And I can't wait for you to check it out live, because your passion in listening to the music will only translate into a lot more fun when you see us, you know, translate it back at you when we play it live. You know what I mean? So can't
I'm,
wait.
I
For
may
real.
come out of retirement, take my shirt off, and just hit the pit.
Definitely, we will allow for that. But if you just also want to watch and hold a beer and enjoy, you can. You know, pressure.
Sounds good, Mike. Sounds good. Thank you
All
very
right.
much, man. Thank you very much. Enjoy the holidays. Happy New Year. Thank you for embracing us with this wonderful record. I'm in love with
Fuck
it.
yeah.
I'm sure you can tell. I'm totally in love with this
I
album.
love it, dude. I love your passion. I really appreciate it. Thank you for making my day. And you know, I'm gonna do a bunch more interviews, but I appreciate that you kind of paid attention to everything. Thank
All
you.
right, man. Thank you very much. Take care.
Cheers, dude.
Enjoy the rest of your
Yeah.
day.
Yeah, man. Later.